This is Amra. I'm here with DRB. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Dylan. I go by DRB. I am a producer and DJ from Florida, but I'm currently living in Denver. And I make bass music, and then I pretty much DJ bass music as well. But there's a lot of like melodic stuff in there as well.
How did you get into EDM?
So kind of like I was telling you, I'm originally from Florida, and our conversation before this, getting to know each other, I Denver is really cool for like the scene, like the with shows, but Florida is huge for festivals. Like there are shows in like Central Florida is kind of bass, dubstep, that's kind of king, and then Miami, South Florida is definitely house and a lot of techno, especially a lot of techno now. But yeah, I started going to festivals like SMF when I was in high school. One of my best friends, his name is Tristan. He kind of introduced me. He went to EDC one year with a coworker of ours. He goes, "Hey, you have to do this." I was like, "Why do I want to listen?" He was showing me sets. So I was like, "Why do DJs keep talking during sets? It's annoying me." And now, like, I really focus on stage presence too. If there's like an energetic, like someone like Kaiser who's really energetic, that's who I like to see. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. Was just originally going to festivals on a whim with my buddy, and he told me that I would like it, and yeah, I've been kind of loving it ever since, and kind of loving where it's going in the scene.
Absolutely. I feel like everyone just dips their foot into the water and then next thing you know, they're just their whole body's just submerged in bass and EDM.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what was your first rave?
So I went to this. I would say SMF was my first official festival, but especially with Florida, like you're kind of around like Central Florida. There's this underground club rave thing called the Soap, and it was kind of like one of those old '90s raves that you hear about where you show up, it's a warehouse and there's black lights. And I was in high school and I went with a coworker of mine and some friends, and I was just kind of at awe of how strange it was and how underground, like we had to go through this gate and to get in, and then we're in like a legit warehouse. And it was very interesting. But then my first real festival was at SMF, and yeah, I forgot who I saw. I know at that time I was listening to like a lot of Don Diablo, and then I saw, I think one time we were walking by the base stage, and at first everyone gets into like, "Oh, what is this? Like, what is this dubstep?" And it was, I think, who was it? Snails was on, and I just was like, "Wow, that is really intense over there." And now that's kind of actually where I tend to go to.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
How was that experience? How did that do you think that really had a role in you getting into EDM and even making music?
yeah. I think going to the festivals and getting more involved in it and finding what I like, especially over the years, you see a lot of how people progress is kind of like, oh, they like the lighter music, and that's awesome too. Like I was saying, Don Diablo, or I remember I was seeing chain smokers when they were first kind of coming up before they even had Closer out, and they were actually throwing like hard sets, like hard dubstep sets out back then in their festival sets. But yeah, going to those, I really saw all the excitement and just the crowds going from like kind of like the hip hop scene to where there's like underground rap shows to where the festival scene, the crowds were pretty different. Everyone was much, I would say, the vibe was a lot higher, and people were really nice and kind of like wanting to talk to you, and you got to see a lot of stuff. Um, and yeah, I kind of just fell in love with it the more I got into it as well. I'm sure you've had like some experiences like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, me personally, I grew up I always liked rock and metal and stuff like that. I
Yeah,
I swear, I feel like they always say that you either come from a rap background, K-pop, or rock. Like that's how you get into
yeah,
EDM. And so I discovered Zed's Dead because of Twilight because they remixed Eyes on Fire, which was a song on Twilight.
yeah.
And that's how I dove into it, Zed's Den and Skrillex. And
Hmm.
so I've always been someone who has always loved it. And I was like, I need to be here. And once I went to my first rave, I was like, this is it. This is my personality for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with
This is
that.
it.
So how did you get into making music?
So I think we're gonna see a lot of producers coming up in the next like kind of few, I would say, generations of producing that are going to be kind of similar to mine. Mine was actually with COVID. So like I mentioned when we were catching up before, I moved from Florida and I graduated from Florida State in December 2019. And I moved to Minneapolis for this job. I got this corporate job, this corporate sales job. I'm like, all right, cool. Like I'm gonna go do this. And throughout the process, I'm like, oh, this really sucks. This job sucks. And then COVID happened, and we saw it kind of come over here. And then there's everything kind of paused. The world paused for a little bit. I moved to Houston and was living there for a little bit. And then I was able to save up enough money, and I met this guy who was like, "Hey, do you know who that DJ Taboo is?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "All right, well, if you kind of DM him and he likes you, he can offer you lessons." So I downloaded Ableton. I messaged him. I downloaded Ableton, and then we kind of were doing lessons from the start of what a kick and snare is, how to set your tempo, and what is Ableton, to the things I sent you earlier, like those unreleased songs. And that was, I think I was looking at my story or my memories. It was like 2 years ago. So I just had some time, and I had a little bit of money to pay for that, just because I wasn't doing anything else. And I really enjoyed it. I always kind of wanted to be a producer and DJ. I just didn't know how to get there. So it's kind of like, hey, I'm making these sets, and I used to make sets like on that DJ 400 I was telling you about, this little small mixer, and I would just load a bunch of songs, and I would just freestyle it, and I would upload it to SoundCloud, and they'll get like a couple thousand plays. Like I think one of them is close to 8,000 plays, and my top my top state, or I don't know, area is somewhere in Australia, and then like Chicago, and then Denver.
Oh
But
my God,
yeah,
that's amazing.
people were just liking it, and I was like, oh. And then I go back and listen to them, and they're so bad. They're not bad, but it's like
But
nothing
like
compared to what I
from
was
like
going to do
where you
now.
are now compared to back then, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's just how I kind of got into it. I was making these sets, and I was like, all right, we'll see how that goes. I didn't know I was going to get into producing. Somehow it just fell into the right way that I started producing, and then now, like, I have shows that I'm playing now. I have to travel to Iowa next week to play shows, so things are slowly coming together, and I'm just trusting that it all works out to where it makes
Yes,
sense.
trust the process.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
I mean, if it makes you feel better, John Summit used to be an accountant and he was like, I got fired for like daily benders. So like everybody starts somewhere. How did you come up with your name? Like,
So my name, and I thought this was funny in the moment when I was trying to come up with like what I'm going to put this on SoundCloud, and because I was just making a SoundCloud account, and I think it was just my name regularly, which is Dylan, and then I changed it when I was uploading like my first set, and I was like, all right, I don't know what a cool DJ name is. And I feel like all DJ names are a little silly until they kind of catch on, like Subtronics or Excision. Like imagine hearing that and never knowing what it is.
yeah, like
It
what is
sounds silly,
that?
yeah. Like all DJ or like virtual, right? Like they all kind of sound silly, and then you find their music and it sounds really cool to you, and you get used to it. So mine was just my name, and I was like, all right, well, if I ever want to, I'll change it. And then people just kind of, little by little, kind of started knowing that's half of what I do by DRB, and so I kept it. And it's just my initials, and that's what it is. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I don't know if I just say my full name, but yeah, it's just
No, I
yeah,
wouldn't.
yeah, my
But
full name,
later
social
on,
security number.
definitely you can tell me your full name, social security, mother's maiden name.
Yeah,
We'll talk all
yeah,
about that.
exactly. I
Yeah.
got you. Yeah.
Anyways, what would you say is like your biggest struggle when it comes to the music industry?
Right now, I would say just time. Like I have to where I'm pretty comfortable with producing. Of course, like I want to level up a lot. I'm trying to save up money to go to Icon, like their online school, very similar like what Jaws did. Because I do want to have that professional aspect. And then, I'm getting comfortable with my mixing and club performance. And I do love being on stage and like having that stage presence. I just have fun with it. I don't, if you see like videos of me or anything like that, I'm not usually just standing around unless I'm trying to set something up, which my sets are kind of crazy like that, where I'm setting up a lot. But I do enjoy just having fun in the crowd interactions. Even no matter how big the crowd is, like I'm having fun with it. So I would say really the thing is time. Like right now, I'm sure the same thing with you, working a full-time job, trying to exercise. I have me and my girlfriend, like making sure I have time for her and I, because that's very important as well. And then trying to also produce and mix and reach out to people and market, and then figure out what's going to happen in 3 months from now, 5 months from now. and keeping all track. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the grind right now. I'm sure that a lot of people are probably feeling the same pressure.
I completely understand you. I mean, we talked before and I told you like what I do for a living and like what's kind of my situation and like I have this beautiful electric guitar staring at me right now collecting dust just because it's been months since I've like picked it up and it
Yeah.
sucks. So like totally understand where you're coming from. But what would you say is like the biggest reward?
I would say the biggest reward is recently. So two things. So I played this festival called Area 54 a few weeks ago, maybe like 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. And it was I got to play one of my intros. So I made an intro specifically for it. Intro, made all in Ableton, all the sound design, which I do this thing where I try to make my songs more intricate than they need to be, especially with my sound design, just to prove to myself I can. And now I'm trying to take a step back. So learning that is a big thing too. But I made this really cool intro, a really drop that I was really proud of, and people loved the intro. It got the energy exactly where I wanted to, introduce who I was, and I thought it was very unique, especially when you see like these smaller shows. A lot of people are getting into it. You know, it's the same thing for me. They're getting used to it. They're understanding where they are in the scene, what their sound is. So making that intro was pretty cool. And then later on in the set, I was able to transition to a song I made. It was that Diamond Wrist one. It was kind of like a hard, like kind of like heavy one.
I
Yeah.
like that one. That
So
one was really good.
yeah, all unreleased.
Yes,
But people
I was
really
like,
liked it.
when
Yeah,
you were sending me them, and like I had like 10 of them, you're like, hey, these are all unreleased, enjoy. And I was like, oh, I feel so honored. Like, thank you.
yeah. I definitely wanted you to be able to kind of get the feel of what I have. But yeah, getting to play Diamond Wrist, just transitioning from one song, figuring out how I was able to incorporate that into my set, and then also just getting to watch like the people in the crowd like really get into it. That was pretty fulfilling. You know, I enjoy making the music, but getting to see how people receive it is really rewarding for me as well. And then I would say just having fun. It's definitely a beautiful, I would say there's a lot of beautiful friendships that come out of it. And then you just see in those moments, no one's caring about their job, not their job, but like no one's caring about other things in the world that
Yeah, they're
usually are
just
so
like living
heavy.
in the moment. Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely
exactly.
I feel that way like myself when I go to festivals and shows. Like
Yeah,
I have gone from somebody who can't get off their phone because I need to record every moment and like remember every moment to
yeah,
my phone stays in my fanny pack. I'm just living in the moment. Like I'll grab a picture or video from my friend. It's fine. Like, but absolutely,
exactly. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think the funny thing is too, you kind of see that, especially when you first start going to these festivals or these events, you want to record everything and you never watch them. You might post a video
Literally.
and they just take up space. But then, like I have my again, my friend Tristan and I go with, we'll grab each other and be like, hey, get off your phone. Just like enjoy the moment. Like we're finally seeing this artist like we were taking forever to see like Alice in Wonderland, or we were seeing K's, or like, hey, we finally are here to see them. Like, we don't need to record all of this. Like, we can just enjoy like our time here and having a good time with like all of our friends. And this, since we don't live near each other, like just enjoying the moment. And no, I
Absolutely.
love that too.
So what was like the biggest set you've ever played or biggest show?
So far, I'm just now starting to get into like these underground circuits. It's definitely this Area 54 festival that I just was telling you about. It was smaller. I think it was like probably 500 people at most in the festival. So my set probably didn't have anywhere above 100 people, but still,
That's a
I
hundred
just
people
had,
who were there. Like, hey,
yeah, I mean, I think it was less than 100 people, but there was the people that were there were stayed for most of my entire set, if not the whole thing. And there was just a lot of energy too. So it felt like with me,
yeah,
like that was it. I was like, yes, this is what I've been preparing for. This is why I worked my set out. And then just like kind of to talk to people afterwards, hand some stickers and like, hey, this is my favorite set of the weekend. You know, I really liked it. And then another part, going back to your last question, was like this guy who was camping next to us because it was a camping festival. And we talked beforehand. I told him where I was. I told him when I was playing. And then we talked after. He's like, hey, man, do you play in Jacksonville or anywhere like in North Florida? He's like, I'm a fan now. Like, I want to see you. And that was one of the first times where someone I didn't know, like a stranger, told me he was a fan. And that it meant a lot to me. So I was like, thank you. So that was
I
a
would
lot.
like, I would just start like crying right there. Like, I wouldn't even be able to like hold it until that person walks away. I'd be like, and just start like sobbing my eyes out.
You're like, oh, give me a hug. But
That's
yeah, no.
such an amazing feeling. And I feel like you're never going to be able to replace like that feeling you felt like in that moment. So
Yeah. I think like these, like you were saying, don't rush it or don't kind of rush the process. I've gotten that advice a lot, especially like with releasing music. That's why I have so many of those unreleased tracks I sent you. Because once you start doing it, you know, you have to keep releasing more. But not trying to rush the process, and enjoying like the little moments, like someone saying they're a fan, they don't know you, or someone asking you to come play like in these other areas, or you meet a promoter who really likes your style and likes your sound. So those initial steps, I'm really trying to hold in the moment, but not get too far ahead of myself.
yeah. What would you say is like your dream set? Like what is the one set that if you play at this certain festival, like you feel like I made it, like this is it, like
Mm, I would love to play. So, you know, of course, a Florida boy. I would love to play SMF, like EDC, of course, but I feel like SMF is such a like a local festival where people like from all over the world come to EDC Orlando. It's huge, but SMF is one of those places where I all of my friends at one point would have gone or would go, and that would be very special too. And I, like my dream set is to play there at the base stage, you know, maybe a sunset or something like that at night. You know, playing a lot of my own original tracks and just people just really engaging with the crowd, but also having my friend, like I have a core group of friends, like we were talking about beforehand, who have been with me since like I started DJing randomly at this after party that we had after UDC, and then to this day. And I would love for them to be on stage too. So that's kind of like the goal. If that ever gets to happen, or once it gets to happen, that will be a benchmark, I would say, in this whole project.
what
Yeah.
what would you want people to know about you like personally that like really ties into like who DRB is?
I would say personally, oh, that's a great question. I feel like personally, it's just kind of like, hey, I play pretty aggressive music, but I'm pretty calm as a person. Like, you know, getting to talk to somebody after a set or getting like to share their thoughts. I'm pretty, I would say, outgoing into the fact like I would like to get to know you or like sit down and talk and kind of like create like this friendship, especially people that at this point now where you're starting to make like a fan here, a fan there. Like this is not just like, hey, you're my fan or like you're a fan of like what I'm doing. Like I want to be friends with you. I want to tell you like when I have shows because like what I do is like I want to share with you as well. So I feel like just showing that off stage or outside of production and any sets or any tracks that a person may hear, they might be pretty aggressive or a lot going on. But me as a person is pretty calm and chill and very, I would say, easy to connect with.
Is there anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah. I mean, anyone that gets to listen to this interview, and then I slowly have like all those tracks. I'm trying to have enough tracks to where I can put out or not be rushed with for like a year. So I have like 8 right now, and I want to get a little bit more done before I start releasing them. Yeah, you know, I'm very easy to contact if you have thoughts about it or if you have like a song you like. Yeah, DM me. I'm pretty responsive on there. And then, yeah, I just hope to see everybody eventually at one of these shows. I go to Iowa next week. I just got back from Florida. I'm trying to set some stuff up here in Denver. And then it looks like I'll be going back to Florida in the next couple months for a show or two.
That's so exciting. Okay, thank you
Yeah.
guys so much for watching. Peace out.
Drop it.